Everyone at Geumhwa High knew who Kang Na-eun was. Daughter of the CEO of JK Holdings. Flawless uniform. Custom iPhone case with her initials in gold. She arrived at school in a black Mercedes with tinted windows and never repeated an outfit twice. She was a girl people envied, admired, whispered about. And on a rainy Wednesday morning, she walked into class as usual. Umbrella tucked neatly, blazer perfectly pressed, smile cool and composed. No one noticed her stiff posture, or how tightly she gripped the strap of her bag. No one saw that, beneath her designer jacket, she was wearing a blouse she had stitched herself a night before, because no one knew, not yet, that Kang Na-eun was no longer rich. Not even close. It had happened almost overnight. One phone call, one scandal, one collapse of everything. JK Holdings went bankrupt after a fraud scandal involving her father's partner. Their assets were frozen. Her family's properties were seized. The Mercedes was gone. The house in Gangnam was sold. They moved into a tiny apartment near the outskirts of Seoul. Her mother refused to go outside. Her father disappeared into court hearings. And Na-eun kept going to school like nothing had happened, because she had one rule: never let anyone see you fall. She didn't tell anyone. She still wore her name-brand accessories, carefully cleaned and rotated, still drank her Americano in the morning, now brewed in a thermos from home, still walked with her head held high, even though she now got off at the bus stop 2 neighborhoods away to avoid being seen boarding public transit. Everything was under control, until Jiho noticed. He was a scholarship student, top of the class, always quiet, always working. He cleaned tables at a 24-hour cafe after school. They had barely spoken beyond polite greetings, until the day Na-eun dropped her wallet in the hallway. He picked it up and returned it, and noticed it was completely empty. No cards, no cash, not even a coin. She snatched it back too quickly, and didn't meet his eyes. From that moment, Jiho started watching more carefully. The next day, she didn't buy lunch. She claimed she was on a cleanse. The day after that, she avoided the vending machine she used every day. Then she started skipping club meetings that required entrance fees. And once, when the class went out for Diakbaki after exams, she smiled and said, "I have a spa appointment." But Jiho knew, because he knew what hunger looked like, what fear of exposure looked like. He had lived it his entire life. One afternoon, as Na-eun sat on the rooftop, pretending to text someone important while her stomach growled softly, a quiet voice interrupted her. "Don't move." She blinked. Jiho knelt beside her, pulled out a wrapped lunchbox, and placed it next to her. She stared. "What's this?" "Leftovers." "I don't eat leftovers." He shrugged. "Then don't." He walked away before she could respond. She didn't touch the food for 5 minutes. Then, very carefully, she opened it. It was warm, simple, delicious. Rice, fried egg, kimchi. She ate every bite. Alone. The next day, the same lunchbox appeared again. He didn't say a word. Neither did she. It became a silent ritual. He'd leave it. She'd eat it. They never acknowledged it in class. But something began to shift. She started noticing things about him. The dark circles under his eyes from late-night shifts. The way he always gave up his seat to others. How he stayed behind after class to erase the whiteboard without being asked. And he noticed her too. How she turned her phone screen away whenever it buzzed. How she stopped laughing at expensive jokes. How her eyes lingered too long on school supply prices in the hallway kiosk. One Friday afternoon, he found her sitting in the back of the library with a pile of textbooks. "I thought you had a tutor," he said. She looked up. She's on vacation. He sat across from her, without asking. "You need help with chemistry?" She didn't answer. He reached for her notes. "Your formulas are wrong." "Excuse me?" "You're memorizing them instead of understanding." "Here." he explained, quiet but clear, tracing atoms with pencil like he was drawing constellations. She stared. No one had ever talked to her like this. Not because they didn't care, but because they assumed she already knew everything. But Ji-ho didn't assume. He saw her, and for the first time, she felt seen, not as a symbol of wealth, not as a polished image, but as someone who could struggle. Days turned into weeks. Their silent partnership deepened. He shared his used textbooks with her, taught her how to refill pens instead of replacing them, quietly paid her late cafeteria balance. She never asked, but she knew. And one rainy afternoon, while sitting under a bus stop shelter with only one umbrella between them, she said softly, "You know, I've never had a normal day before." He looked at her. "I don't know what normal means either." She smiled for real. "Then maybe we can figure out together." But secrets don't stay secrets forever, and appearances can't hold when people are watching too closely. One day, a classmate noticed Na-eun using a library card with a different name. Another overheard her scheduling a phone interview for part-time work. Then someone caught her taking leftovers from the faculty lounge. And suddenly, the whispers returned. But this time, they weren't in admiration. They were in doubt. "Did you hear she's not rich anymore? Was all of it fake? She's just like the rest of us, pretending." The final blow came when a girl named Choi De-yeon, bitter, petty, and obsessed with hierarchy, cornered Na-eun during lunch. "Is it true your dad's company went bankrupt?" The cafeteria fell silent. Na-eun froze. De-yeon smirked. "Did Ji-ho tell everyone? Is that why you're always together now?" The room stared. Na-eun's hands trembled. And in that moment, terrified, humiliated, cornered, she snapped. She stood up, voice loud and cold. "Is this your revenge, Ji-ho?" He blinked from across the room. She kept going. "Are you enjoying watching the rich girl fall? Was this the plan from the start?" Everyone watched. Ji-ho didn't say a word. He just stood, picked up his tray, and walked out. Na-eun stood alone, heart pounding, dignity shattered. And for the first time in her life, she felt poor, not because of money, but because she had just lost the only person who never saw her as a label. The rumors moved faster than she could breathe. By the end of the school day, everyone knew, or thought they did, that Kang Na-eun wasn't rich anymore, that she'd been lying for months, that the lunchboxes weren't hers, that the scholarships, the accessories, even the club donations, all of it had been part of a crumbling illusion. And worse, they believed Ji-ho had exposed it. She heard it in the hallway. He probably hated her type. He's a scholarship student. Of course he wanted to watch her fall. He's just another poor kid playing hero. Hae-kyung, her oldest friend, avoided her eyes. Her club members politely asked if she was still able to pay next month's fees. The teachers, the same ones who praised her family, now walked past with clipped nods. Na-eun didn't go home after school. She wandered. No umbrella, rain soaking through her blazer. She stopped at the edge of the riverbank, watching the ripples form in circles. Her world had always been structured, labeled, controlled. But now it was quiet. And in that silence, shame roared louder than anything. That night, she didn't eat, didn't change, didn't cry. She sat in her dark room and stared at the screen of her phone. One unread message from Ji-ho. She didn't open it. She couldn't, because if it wasn't an apology, it would hurt. And if it was, she didn't deserve it. The next morning, she returned to school with her chin up, her uniform pressed, and a smile that barely reached her eyes. She didn't speak unless spoken to. When someone asked about her family, she answered, "We're fine." When someone whispered as she walked by, she ignored it. By lunchtime, she sat alone at the far end of the cafeteria. The same cafeteria where, weeks ago, she and Ji-ho had shared silent glances and quiet meals. Now, the chair across from her remained empty until a shadow fell across the table. She looked up, and there he was, Jiho, holding a tray with 2 drinks and a small plastic container of strawberries. She blinked. I didn't ask. I didn't ask either, he said calmly, sitting down. A few heads turned. Students started whispering again. She stared at him, stunned. He didn't flinch. He picked up a strawberry, bit into it, and said, "So, you think I told them?" She didn't answer. "You really believe I'd do that?" Na-eun's throat closed. I didn't know what to believe. I panicked. He nodded once. "I get that." Then he stood up again and walked away, leaving behind the lunch tray and the strawberries. That night, she finally opened his message. It was short. "I don't need you to trust me. Just don't pretend you don't know who I am." The next day, she asked her homeroom teacher if she could stay after school to clean the classroom. Alone, the teacher nodded, surprised. At sunset, she dusted the windows, rearranged the desks, and then walked to the old music room. Empty. She sat at the piano, opened the lid, and pressed a single key, then another. Her fingers stumbled through an old melody. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in days, she allowed herself to feel it. The loss, the pride, the humiliation, and the ache of losing someone she never even got to call hers. She didn't expect him to show up, but Jiho stepped into the room like he belonged there. He waited until she stopped playing. "You never really answered me," he said. She stared at the keys. "Why did you help me?" she asked softly. "Why did you do all that, if not for some hidden reason?" He stepped closer. "Because I knew what it felt like." She looked up. To lose everything and still pretend it doesn't hurt. Her eyes burned. "Why didn't you just say that?" He shrugged. "You always wore armor. I figured I'd let you keep it." She stood slowly. "I don't want to wear it anymore." The days that followed were different. Not easier, but different. Some classmates still stared. Some still gossiped. But others smiled when she walked in. Teachers returned to greeting her with respect. And one day, her club members said quietly, "If you can't cover the next event, we'll figure out together." And for the first time in her life, Na-eun felt something she never had before. Not admiration, not envy, support. Jiho never asked for thanks, never brought up the strawberries, never mentioned the lunchboxes again. But he waited, patiently, quietly, until the day she found him reading in the library and placed a wrapped rice ball beside him. He looked at it, then at her. She didn't smile, just whispered, "My turn." 1 week later, she found an envelope in her locker. No name. Inside, a handwritten letter. It read, "I know you used to measure yourself in things, in image, in reputation. I hope now you measure yourself in strength, because what you did, that was stronger than anything I've seen from anyone in this school. You fell, and you didn't ask anyone to catch you, but I wanted to. You are the only inheritance I ever wanted to get." She froze. Tears burned her eyes, and before she could overthink it, she ran. She found him in the empty student council office, cleaning the whiteboard. She slammed the door behind her. He turned. Their eyes met, and without a word, she walked straight to him. "I'm sorry," she said, voice trembling. "I was cruel and proud and scared. I know. I accused you and all you did was help me. I know." She reached up and kissed him, not quietly, not carefully, but completely. No titles, no rich girl, no poor boy, just 2 people, 2 hearts, and a truth too big to hide. After the kiss, silence. No fireworks, no background music, just a quiet sound of breathing, too close and too fast, in a room that had once symbolized power. Student council banners still taped to the wall, a stack of dusty leadership handbooks on the table behind them. Kang Na-eun stepped back first, her hands still trembling. Jiho looked at her, calm as always, but his eyes were different now. Softer, unmasked. She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came. He beat her to it. "I forgive you." 3 words. No lecture. No bitterness. Just grace. And it shattered her. From that day on, something changed. Not just between them, but within her. The facade she had worn for years, always perfectly groomed, always untouched by flaws, was gone. What replaced it was quieter, messier, more honest. Na-eun stopped pretending. She began taking the city bus openly, sitting by the window with her earphones in, her uniform rumpled from the morning rush. She started eating in the cafeteria again, sometimes sharing trays with Geumhwa, sometimes borrowing his chopsticks because she forgot hers. He teased her about it. She didn't mind. And when classmates whispered, she smiled instead of flinching, because they didn't scare her anymore. She got a part-time job at a tiny stationery store near the school. After classes, she'd help unpack shipment of notebooks and refill pen displays while the owner, an old woman with kind eyes and terrible memory, told stories about the 1980s and offered her warm barley tea in cracked mugs. One day, as she swept the floor behind the counter, she found a folded napkin tucked inside her bag. It was from Geumhwa. "You're more impressive now than you ever were in heels." She laughed for 3 whole minutes. They didn't define their relationship. No labels, no declarations. But it was there, in every shared umbrella, every copied homework page, every silent exchange of glances across the classroom. Once, she brought him a pair of gloves on a freezing morning, left them on his desk without a word. Later that day, he wrote her name in snow on the rooftop railing and walked away before she saw it melt. And yet, things weren't perfect, because real stories never are. It started with a scholarship announcement. One morning, the school principal entered the class with a bright smile. "As you all know, we've received sponsorship from the Myung-Jin Foundation. They've offered a full academic scholarship to one outstanding student. The recipient is..." He paused dramatically. In Geumhwa, applause erupted, some sincere, some bitter. Na-eun clapped too, loudly, her heart aching with pride. But then she saw his face, frozen, not with joy, but conflict. They met after school behind the gym. "I thought you'd be happy," she said. "I am," he replied, then added, "but it comes with conditions." She frowned. "What kind of conditions?" He hesitated. "I'd be required to participate in publicity events. They want to feature my background, poverty to prestige. All that." She swallowed. "That doesn't sound bad." "It's not, until you read the fine print." He pulled out a printed document. She scanned it. Her stomach dropped. They wanted exclusive rights to his story. They wanted permission to share photos of his part-time jobs. They wanted footage of his home, of his struggles. They wanted to sell his survival as inspiration. "They're turning you into a product," she whispered. He nodded. "I've worked too hard to be pitted." Her eyes filled. "Then don't let them." Together, they sat up that night, drafting a letter. He declined the scholarship with dignity, gratitude, and clarity. It was risky, but Geumhwa had a plan. And for the first time, Na-eun wasn't the one leading. She was following and loving every second of it. The rejection went viral on the school intranet. Some students criticized him. Ungrateful, arrogant, too proud for his own good. But others applauded. "I never liked how they packaged our pain," one student wrote. "Real success is choosing your dignity," another posted. And slowly, Geumhwa became something unexpected. A voice, not just for himself, but for every student tired of being reduced to a label. Rich, poor, smart, troubled. Final exams approached, and with them university decisions. Na-eun applied to a public communications program. Not business, not finance. She wanted to learn how to speak, really speak for herself, and maybe one day, for others. Geumhwa applied to medicine, his dream since middle school. His quiet promise to his grandmother who raised him when his parents couldn't. They studied in empty classrooms, slept through breaks in the library, held hands under the table during group presentations. On the day of the science mock test, she handed him a black pen with silver lettering. "Use this one," she said. He raised an eyebrow. "It's my lucky pen," she added, grinning. He took it. "Then I guess I can't fail." The night before results came out, Na-eun couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the cracked ceiling of her small apartment, not because she feared rejection, but because, for the first time in her life, she wanted something not for status, not for reputation, but for her. And she wanted to share it with someone who saw her for exactly who she was. The next morning, her acceptance email arrived. She cried, alone, then ran out the door in slippers and no makeup. She found Geumhwa on the rooftop. He didn't look at her. He just held up his phone. Accepted. She screamed. He laughed. They hugged, breathless, weightless. And in that embrace, she whispered, "I'm proud of us." Graduation came quickly. Caps, gowns, yearbooks. At the ceremony, Geumhwa received a quiet nod from the principal. No speech, no spotlight, but in the back row, a group of scholarship students stood and clapped for him anyway. Na-eun didn't win any awards that day, but she walked out of the auditorium holding Geumhwa's hand, and for the first time, it felt like enough. After the ceremony, they stood alone in the classroom one last time. The chalkboard still held scribbles from final lessons. The desks were marked with messages. "Good luck. Don't forget me. We survived." Joe turned to her. "You're still proud, you know," he said. She raised an eyebrow. "Proud? Yeah, even without the money, the heels, the perfect hair." She smiled. "You still wear cheap gloves and act like they're designer." He laughed. They stood there. No status, no fear, no pretending. Just two kids who lost everything and found something better, each other. Winter at Hanseo University came fast. The icy wind curled around lecture halls and snow dusted the sidewalks where nervous freshmen huddled with coffees and course syllabi. For Kang Na-eun, everything was new again, but this time she wasn't pretending. She no longer led with brand names. She no longer calculated her every move. She just lived. Public transportation, budget lunches, group study sessions at the library, night shifts at the bookstore 2 blocks from campus. It was exhausting, but it was hers. And Geumhwa was there. They weren't in the same department. She was in media studies. He was buried under textbooks in the pre-medicine track. But somehow, their paths always crossed. Sometimes at the cafeteria, sharing meals they couldn't afford to skip. Sometimes outside lecture halls, brushing hands on accident and not apologizing. Sometimes at midnight, trading tired messages. "You awake?" "Barely." "You?" "Thinking of kimchi stew." "Come over. I made too much." Home was now a tiny rooftop studio she rented with her own money. The view was of other rooftops. The walls were thin, but the silence wasn't lonely anymore. Not when he was in it. Still, their peace wasn't perfect. With independence came new pressure. Geumhwa juggled 2 part-time jobs, tutoring in the mornings, dishwashing at night. His face grew more tired, his hands rougher, his voice quieter when she asked, "Are you okay?" And Na-eun, no longer under the expectations of high society, was now expected to prove she belonged. She wasn't a girl with donations or connections anymore. She was just another name on a long list. One night, after a brutal midterm, she called him. "Meet me on the bridge?" He didn't ask which one. They met halfway across the Han River, the city sparkling behind them. He handed her a sweet potato from the street cart. She took it without smiling. "I failed my statistics exam," she said. He leaned against the rail. "I skipped my shift yesterday to study for anatomy. Still forgot half the body parts." They stood in silence. Then he said, Want to drop out together? She turned to him, startled, but he was smiling. She laughed through her nose. Don't tempt me. It became their secret code. Failed a quiz. Let's drop out. Professor made you cry. Drop out. Lost your umbrella. Spilled coffee on your laptop, and your bus left early? Definitely drop out. But they never did, because beneath the sarcasm was something stronger. Resilience. And each other. One evening, he came over with a small paper bag. She raised an eyebrow. What's this? 3 things, he said. 1, vitamins. You skip meals. She rolled her eyes. Thanks, Mom. 2, gloves. You keep forgetting yours. She blinked. They were the same kind he wore in high school. Warm, simple, no logo. And 3, he hesitated, then pulled out a small card envelope. I got into the internship program at Daehan Medical Center. She froze. That's... Yeah, he said. 1 step closer. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. He noticed. What? She shook her head. I'm proud of you. That's all. He stepped closer. Then why do you look like you're about to cry? Because it meant less time. Because the closer he got to his dream, the farther away she felt. Because suddenly, their university life, the late-night ramen, the library naps, the rooftop stargazing, felt temporary. She didn't say any of that. Just hugged him. I'm happy for you. He hugged her back. Tight. Spring came with blooming magnolias and graduation banners fluttering across campus. Second year meant heavier coursework. Less time together. She found herself walking home alone more often. She didn't complain. Neither did he. But something between them shifted. Less laughter. More tired nods. More, I'll call you later, and I need to study. Until one night in her apartment, she asked a question she'd been holding in her chest. Are we okay? Jiho looked up from his laptop. What do you mean? Do you still want this? He blinked. You. Us. He closed the laptop, walked to her slowly, took her hand. Na-eun, he said quietly. You're the only part of my life that doesn't feel like a fight. Her throat caught. But what if I'm holding you back? You're the only one who reminds me why I started. She looked at him, tears welling. I don't have anything to offer you. Not anymore. He touched her cheek. You gave me dignity, safety, love. She finally cried. And this time, she didn't hide it. That night, they made a promise. No matter how far, no matter how hard, they would keep showing up for each other. Not perfectly, not every day, but honestly. By the time they reached their final year, Na-eun had become known for her radio show on campus, Midnight Letters, a soft-voice program where students would send anonymous confessions and hear her read them under low music. It became a campus favorite. And one night, she received a letter. No name, just handwriting she knew too well. Dear DJ, there's a girl I met in high school. She used to wear heels and hide her heart behind brand names. Now she wears sneakers and says what she means. She once believed she was alone, but she isn't. Not anymore. She's the bravest person I know. And if she's listening, I'd really like her to meet me on the bridge. One last time. She ran. No coat, no umbrella, just breathless steps across wet sidewalks until she saw him, standing in the middle of the bridge, under the streetlight, holding out a tiny ring, silver, thin, simple. I can't give you a mansion, he said, or a driver, or anything fancy. She laughed through tears. Good. I like buses. He smiled. But I can give you a life, one where we both keep trying. She stepped forward, took the ring. You already gave me that. Then she kissed him as cars rushed by, as the river shimmered below, as the city, their city, sparkled around them. Autumn arrived again, golden and heavy with the weight of endings. Their final semester, the last papers, the last exams, the last sleepy morning lectures. And slowly, reality approached. Job offers, internships, residencies, rent, loans, a future no longer theoretical, but right there, waiting, and still, they walked through it hand in hand. Kang Na-eun graduated with honors in media studies. Geumhwa passed his med school entrance exam with one of the highest scores in the country. At the ceremony, they didn't sit together, different departments, different rows, but their eyes found each other anyway across the sea of caps and robes. She mouthed, "We did it." He nodded, and when her name was called, he stood and clapped louder than anyone else. That night, after the reception, after the photos and tearful group hugs and leftover fake cake, she found him sitting at their old spot by the river. No words at first, just quiet, just the current. Then he said, "I start next month." She smiled. "I figured. I already ordered your lab coat. With your name." He blinked. "You did? Don't act surprised. I know your size." He laughed, then looked at her. "What about you?" "I got an offer from a podcast network. Junior producer." "That's amazing." "It's a start." He nodded. They sat in the silence between success and uncertainty. Then she said, "Are we still doing this?" He turned to her. "What do you mean?" "I mean, life's going to get harder. We'll be busy. We'll be broke. You'll be exhausted. I'll be scared." "I know." "So," he leaned toward her, "so we keep doing it scared." Moving into their first apartment together was chaos. The elevator broke. The faucet leaked. The only furniture they owned was a second-hand table and a mattress on the floor. But she taped their graduation photos to the fridge. He stuck their old cafeteria meal cards on the wall. It wasn't much, but it was home. They didn't have money for a wedding, just a small ceremony in the city office. 2 witnesses, a shared umbrella. She wore a white blouse and a long beige skirt. He wore a black shirt and gray slacks. No tie. The ring was still the silver one from the bridge. They signed the papers and laughed like they had just committed the greatest rebellion of all. That night, they returned to their rooftop, ordered fried chicken, sat on the floor, and toasted with paper cups of soda. "To surviving," he said. "To choosing," she replied. Years passed. She produced a hit podcast called Unscripted, where people anonymously shared the moments they were most ashamed of. It reached #1 in the charts. She gave interviews, wore simple clothes, smiled without hiding. When asked where the idea came from, she said, "Because once I thought being poor was the worst thing that could happen to me. Turns out hiding who you are is worse." Geumhwa became a trauma specialist. His reputation spread quickly. Brilliant, calm, grounded. He never forgot where he came from. Once, a parent asked why he didn't open his own clinic. He smiled and said, "I already have everything I need." One evening, after a long shift, he came home to find her asleep on the couch, laptop open, headphones askew. On the screen was an email. "Congratulations. Your show has been picked up for television." He sat beside her, took her hand, and whispered, "You're still the strongest person I know." She didn't wake up, but she smiled in her sleep. On the wall beside their fridge, now bigger, shinier, surrounded by framed photos and late bills and magnets from dollar stores, hung a single page, a faded sheet of notebook paper, the one he once slipped into her locker. "You are the only inheritance I ever wanted to get," because their story wasn't about wealth, or tragedy, or rising from the ashes. It was about 2 people who lost everything they thought defined them and found something better, something real, and neither of them ever had to pretend again.